and welcome to Buildings of Tomorrow. My name is John Lester, and in today's episode, we are talking about artificial intelligence, everything AI, and how we are using AI, and what are the next steps for AI in this industry around infrastructure and buildings. I'm very happy to be joined today by Ulli Waltinger. He is the Associate VP of AI at Siemens Advanta and the Technical Fellow of Siemens AI Labs. On top of that, he also hosts and creates his own podcast called Human and AI. So I really do suggest if you're interested in this topic, go and check it out because he has great conversations with colleagues and compatriots around the industry as well. Ulli, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey John, thanks very much. What a welcome! Oh man, awesome, right? This is how a day should start. Right?
This is how a day should start. It should make you feel good, but also at the same time, a lot of words that only say such a small piece of let's say the knowledge and the expertise you bring to this topic. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited for the chat.
So am I.
So let's start a little bit with AI. It's something that we've spoken about before. Of course, AI is something of a buzzword or a topic that we hear a lot about. Whether it's from companies talking about what they do, or whether it's from other technology that we use in our daily lives. If we look a little bit at the AI space today, and artificial intelligence in this corporate space, in this technology space, in this industrial and infrastructure space, where are we up to? How are we traveling in implementation and really using this technology effectively?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? AI has been quite on hip and hype, actually, on both levels, and I think it's established itself as a key enabling technology on the board level and the company strategy, which we see on AI first strategies and AI first companies, narratives around that. And if we look a bit closer, then we can see that we are somehow on the convergence of value chains, what I call the AI and IoT, which is, from my perspective, separated in two different pillars. One aspects are the enterprise AI aspects, like harnessing AI and automation to transform somehow the business processes, sales forecasting, demand forecasting, automation scenarios. Mm-hmm. And the second one is the industrial AI perspective, which is more harnessing AI and control technologies, to thrive for the transformation of industrial applications. And I would say that the combination of the connection of both sides, enterprise and industrial world, right, is that what enables us the business models and the scaling across the value chain. In that, but obviously somehow the AI magic happens in those kinds of nice hotspots where human needs are somehow positioned, but also human expertise is leveraged. So this kind of combination makes it quite nice in providing value. Mm-hmm. And if we look then on a bit of an enterprise level, then we see that most of the enterprises start their AI journey, right, towards an AI operating model, right? But if you then see how many of these initiatives, POCs, prototypes, projects have been actually then ending up at the value, at the deployment, at an operationalization, that we see that only 10% actually of these kinds of aspects are actually leveraging that value out there.
That's a really interesting fact to see that only 10% are making it. And do we see a difference across different industries or different applications that people are trying to achieve some things and they work more often than not and trying to achieve other things and they never work? How do you see that perspective?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I see two different sides. So you see the small and medium enterprises. I think they struggle rather on the ROI, what we call the return on invest. Investing a couple of $100K or tens of Ks of more 5-digit numbers or 6-digit numbers in something to explore is a hell lot of money. So here it must be clear, what is the return on that invest in these kinds of aspects, and what are good partner setups in helping, joining that, because they maybe not have an own data science and AI team, an expert, the competence center, right? But, demand on, motivation, but also capabilities and clear structure on the return on site. Large operations, and enterprises struggle rather on the end-to-end solution, I would say. There you have all this massive, of IT infrastructure. You never give up an ERP system and whatsoever system, right? And therefore, going end-to-end in an API first paradigm is of vital importance, but still struggling on that, right? Overall, I think on an executive level, right, we see a bit of a foundation level which has three different elements in that. The one is the aspiration of scalable returns. If you draw, I'm a bit consulting now here, right? But McKinsey's, values AI around 3.5, maybe to 5 trillion US, right? Which can be unlocked to AI. Obviously, board members want to have part of the shares and say like, hey, how does that contribute to our boards and bills, right? The second aspect is the industrial grade aspects and design aspects of that. Most recently, the European Commission, launched the 7 key requirements that AI systems should meet. That means it's also not only benefits, but also it demands some requirements in terms of safety, explainable, security, and these kinds of aspects. So industrial grade is a difference than just deploying a consumer tech product. And the third one is, I think we will see a lot, is meaningful attention. And most recently, the Nature paper, motivated that 79% of all SDG targets, sustainable development goals, right, can be positively impacted by AI. And that means technology and, let's say, and or with purpose, as Siemens somehow puts it, the combination of a meaningful intention of technology and innovation and a good responsible business has entered not only as a narrative the boardrooms of corporates, but AI is playing a vital part in that, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, that is really exciting, especially when you start to talk about that scope and when you discuss the enterprise targets, so the business functionality, then the industrial targets, which are more on processes. When you start to put it in the scope of sustainability goals, as an example, which we know impacts every single piece of this, it starts to tie these two worlds together somehow, which also brings up some of those challenges, like you described, that end-to-end requirement, the challenge to really take an approach that broad and that holistic for a small to medium-sized enterprise. These are not small challenges to undertake, especially as you bring in that point of once you start deploying this in a more productized manner, the requirements, the security, the consistency, the reliability all start to come into play more and more. How, like, when we take a look at the industry in general, so this is where we're up to today, and we know that this is something that we've been trying and doing more of, and you mentioned, even with all of the pilots and all of the proof of concepts that we have, 10% really make it into something that works. Where are you seeing improvement? Where are we having some wins, and where are we getting better as an industry in deploying and leveraging this technology?
So I think we can separate again to three different kind of paradigms. The one I call digitalization on steroids. The second one is automation on steroids, and the third one is correlation on steroids. Digitization on steroids, right? I think the current pandemic posed very effectively and efficiently as a magnifying glass where the improvement spots and levers in digital technology can be there, right? Gaining through smart automation. Automation obviously is something which once you have digitalized processes, which helps you enabling it further and gaining more out of it. And correlation of steroids, right, is something which adds probabilistic uncertainty estimation in the vital role, right? Identification, classification, forecasting, prognosis, and semi or autonomous control. So that's quite an awesome aspect. And with us along, right, the major challenge that we had prior was, limited few of the portfolio, limited few of the assets, limit visibility, let's say, in building on carbon footprint or on asset performance, on asset tracking. A lot of data was in silos and these kinds of aspects. Now we enter more and more the level of, of the AIoT, and that means, connecting devices. And we are moving from connecting the people paradigm, social media and social networks, which I call the embodiment stage of machine intelligence. So we have smart devices which has something in there, right, which guides us through the daily journey, now to increasing level of machine autonomy, right? Currently, we estimated 21 billion active connected devices worldwide. It's estimated at 30 billion of IoT connections. So that means, 4 IoT devices per person on average by 2025, right? Which leading use cases are still predictive maintenance, quality inspection, manufacturing process, supply chain, and uprising will be a hot stack, AI-driven cybersecurity. And that means from the data silos perspective and the data availability, which is pivotal and key in leveraging, value out of data, we had some improvement, and not only on connectivity, but also on the semantic side, understanding domains, understanding vocabulary, and the semantic connection to each other. And I think this brings us to the point that we are currently, obviously, would say we are living in a data-driven society. So that means for the first time in history, we can see enough about ourselves and our places and products where, we can, rethink buildings, where we can rethink infrastructure, where we can rethink problems and products around that. And I think Jeff Merritt from the BAF actually put it very nicely, right? Connected device makes our life easier, and we need to see AI and IoT as a design language, right? When we suddenly have the capability in having real-time data. So you're not actually taking guesses, right? What could be an option, but you can just act in real time. And this is pretty dope, right? And this is pretty awesome, because that means complexity, is a lot of complexity can be automated. Lights out in the workplace, or smart conditions, smart experiences in buildings and stuff like that. And some of them, will lead to a dramatic shift in improved and awesome experience. And this is where data, semantic, and AI, especially predictions, come into place. Where I say, like, that's pretty dope.
Yeah, and what you just described there, I guess, is a challenge that whether it's AI related or just data related, this is something that the industry has been struggling with for a long time, right? We're so much better at collecting information, but actually using it and turning it into something valuable, turning it into actions, has always been a challenge. You mentioned semantics or semantic data tagging and approaches to understand and automatically get some insight and start to leverage this information is such a big step towards that. And that last point you mentioned, where we start to shift away from some of the standard applications where we talk about predictive maintenance and making estimations, to actually driving this stuff real time. How do we make that mindset shift when we're still not there yet in the applications that we have already defined as a focus? How do we get ourselves then to start putting our minds in the place to start talking about real time activations like this, and moving past the estimations, the predictive approach, and starting to talk about real-time automation?
Yeah, so that means more into the actually applications aspects, right? And then that, I think the motivations are there. If you open up the world and look out there, right, then you see that traditional industrial technologies, are increasing more important and are fused with digital technology, distributed cloud computing, right, and stuff like. And they paved somehow the way, what I would say the sustainable future, right? If you look on the cities aspect, right, energy demand resulting in CO2 emissions, right, it's accounting more than 78% probably, right, of the energy consumption. 70% of our CO2 emissions come from there. Heating, cooling, ventilation, right, pivotal aspects, actually a big line share in that kind of energy demand. So the other question is, how can we use responsibly these technologies and the elements that we have, connectivity, data, semantics, in order to enable that? And that means, working not only alone, right? And that means a mindset of not only test and try and failure culture, which is a bit of, most frequently being said, but actually, how do we shape communities together for us as industrial player to make transparent what the challenges are, And for us also, given other colleagues outside, the partners, the students, and the enablement with working with data, working on these talents and making a difference and moving them from just a pure cat classifier on a synthesized data set to a real world champion, challenge. And a couple of examples what I think is quite nice is most recently, we launched the city performance tool aspects that more on the, let's say, asset transparency aspect. Again, so what are the indication of infrastructure, what kind of decisions may influence what kind of implements or growth or infrastructure sector. So that's getting a know and knowledge about that. And this is also what I think the expert team has made. Afzal, kudos to you if you listen here. What makes you, the team around you, makes really awesome to see where, on real time is which data and how we can leverage it. I think the second one is especially in compute, right? Data centers are quite heavy being used, right? And I think this, using machine learning to reduce the cooling energy demand, right? This is a partnership actually with Vigilant, right? On power uses effectiveness, a bit of hard KPI, but I think, you save energy by, cooling the right aspects in cold islands and hot islands. Using machine learning technology for that is pretty dope, actually, to be honestly. And it has quite some impact because ICT communication, and with that, the need for compute will just increase. So making smart AI in there is awesome. Third, maybe a quality detection, right? Obviously react and prognosis, but also putting, as we did it in the City of London, right, maneuvering and getting transparency, but also obviously predicting and improving the service procedures there. Visual quality inspection for assets using drones or, mapping risks in order to improve service fleets or, investment spending. So vision, especially in AI, gives us the eye, obviously, in the field. And that's pretty dope. And maybe last but not least, the building. I think that's a pretty dope project also in Siemens. Kudos to Siemens Technology and the smart infrastructure folks here, because it's awesome. A building digital twin, which is what is exactly, so it's actually a knowledge graph, so a graphical representation of the assets, which powers the relation of, unified and semantic typified information. It's using design information like IFC format, you may want to know. The information of the allocation of the rooms, but also in combination with time series sensor information. And from a data geek as I am, that's pretty awesome, because I've seen that's one of the largest knowledge graphs initiatives, apart maybe from the energy twin, right? Which shows, how we can enable applications. We call them companions on top of this repository.
Yeah, awesome. What I love, those two or three, well, those 3 or 4 examples that you just gave in different applications. The best thing about many of them is they build upon, so many of the technologies that are almost standard for the industry, but they add additional knowledge, they add additional capabilities, which enable us to do those jobs better. And that's that shift away from the standard automation, the standard design of a control system, and start to enable that control system to take actions and in an autonomous manner and make those chases. So you talked about the compute demand and data centers becoming more and more driven also by different data regulations, etc. We start to see data centers being put in many more places in many different ways, from small to medium, not just the really massive scale. And all of them still have this challenge to try and tackle, whether they're a huge piece of infrastructure or small. And you also mentioned the expo, which I really like, because I know there was a big part, and I haven't had the chance to visit. So anyone out there that's listening that has had the chance, I'm a little bit jealous, but I do know of these sustainability spaces where you can go in and you get some real-time information about how many people are in that certain space, and then what the impacts and what's possible to really achieve using different technologies, and learn from that information in real time and show the impacts of that. I think they're just really exciting examples where we do make that shift away from making some decisions on a theoretical perfect world, designing a system to run in a certain way and then setting it free, even though this is better than not having them, of course, bringing in this learning capability. And maybe a simple question, but an important one is, from your perspective, is this the difference? Is this what those applications where we could say, listen, if you had someone sitting there, if you had the knowledge and the capabilities, and you would then make a decision in a different way or make a change, are those the applications and the opportunities where AI really is ready for us to take action, to at least investigate those opportunities and check out what we can try and achieve when you get these different people together and we start to have this collaboration. Is that a reasonable assumption?
Yeah, I would say so, right? This is what also the demand of the younger generation. I see. We launched different, formats, from a residency program, research residency, business residency program, um, and a lot of the questions of the younger folks who can maybe choose their employees right away, choose the companies, right? It's we are applying for talents out there, not the talents apply for the company here, right? And the main question is, how do you, first of all, how do you make sure that that I'm not crushed by politics because large organizations are aspects, but actually in the first discussions, how can I make a difference with my capabilities and my competences in machine learning and AI, that I can work on real world challenges. And I think this is where we are at. This is where we need to put responsibility and accountability on our side as well, to make sure that we extend state of the art research and applications, but on real world grounded, challenges that make a difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is no, we've talked a lot about sustainability today. There is no bigger challenge that has more impact on our way of life, but also that is affected by so many of the things that we do in our daily lives, or consume in our daily lives, or expect from our modern society. So I think if we're looking for those real world examples, the challenge that we have as a society ahead of us from a sustainability perspective is as big as it gets. And we will never run out of those challenges, I assume, as there are more of us on the planet, as we find ourselves in a different climate, with challenges ahead of us. Those questions that we need to try and take action on will continue to come around. Ulli, thank you so much. I had a great conversation, or I had a great chat from my perspective. I really enjoyed listening to you and learning a little bit. I really hope that we can do this again, because I get the feeling we're scratching the surface somehow. So I'd love to have you back at some point and talk a little bit more.
John, thanks very much. It was really fun. Time is flying, right? but well, looking forward. And
this is the problem. We set up this short approach. We say, hey, let's have shorter conversations so people can listen through them. But then before we even get started, we have to finish somehow. But we'll find a new way to get there. And anyone out there who is listening and is interested and enjoy what Ulli had to talk about, really do go and check out Human and AI. It's a great podcast, and really not just Ulli and his knowledge, but some great voices from across the industry that also bring their expertise and different insights in not just in AI, the technology, but how it is applied, those applications that we talked about, and also some of the challenges like how and where should we use it, and what do we have to take into consideration from a society perspective and also a governance perspective when we start talking about artificial intelligence. So go and check that out. It's a good one. Until our next conversation, Ulli, thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. I hope the sun continues to shine, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Thanks much.
And a very quick thank you to everyone else listening out there. Please remember to like, subscribe, share this episode. Check out our new episodes that are coming every other week or so. And also don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to Ulli if you've got any questions or comments. Let's continue the conversation, and you'll hear again from us soon. Thank you.